Exmormonology, Episode 17. Hey, you guys, welcome. I'm Amy Logan, amyloganlife.com. I'm a life coach that helps people transition into life after Mormonism. You can find out more about me over there. And of course, I invite you to work with me. I have an 8-week course that I take you through and help you with all things post-Mormon life. Okay, today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about headstrong and unruly. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, I'm going to kind of say kudos to you. If you do know what I'm talking about, kudos to you as well. Of course, I've heard about it. It's Uchtdorf. It's General Conference. We're going to go there. We're going to talk about love bombs and church invites and a wee little bit about quarantine life. So I'm in day 28. I think it's day 28. I've kind of lost track of time, days. I don't even know what day it is most of the time. But I'm in day 28 of quarantine life here in our household. And how are you doing with all of that? Where you live, are people taking it seriously? Are they staying in? Are they not? I'm choosing to look at this time we're experiencing in our history of the world as very fascinating. It's very interesting. And I feel good about framing it that way. Is it hard and scary? Yeah, we're all experiencing different feelings and thoughts about it, but it is a fascinating time to be alive as we learn how to navigate this new normal. So the last thing I'm going to say about it, because I've made 3 previous episodes about it to help you. So go back and listen to them if you haven't. And if you have, even if you have listened to it and you find yourself struggling, like most of us, that comes and goes, go back and listen to those episodes. They are made to help you. So please go consume that content. I think one of the best ways that really helps your brain with all of this is just get really curious about it. And I don't mean curious in the sense of like the stats and all of that, but just curious at what this means. You know, we've been living our life a certain way for a certain amount of time with, just the normal ups and downs of life. And now we have this, and it could change a lot of things for a lot of people. Get really curious about it. How do you want to think about this? I probably mentioned that in one of my previous episodes. When we can stay in curiosity mode, we can really learn a lot about ourselves and our brain and how we handle crisis, how we handle sadness, how we handle grief. So that's a good place to let your brain go to. Stay curious. You don't have to make it mean anything, but you can just stay in curiosity mode. All right. That's it for that. Okay. I want to move on. All right. You guys, I deal with thought work every day. I get inside your brains and I see what's going on in there. That's what I do with my clients. And you've heard me talk about in previous episodes about how our thoughts create our feelings. We have a thought about a circumstance, and this is a great example for me to teach you really quickly about what I mean about a circumstance being neutral. So when I'm working with my client, I'm helping them get what the problem, quote unquote, that they're dealing with in life, get that circumstance to be neutral. All right, because we only make it mean something when we add a feeling to it. But this coronavirus is a good example of how it's a neutral circumstance. You are putting a meaning on it into your own life, depending on what thoughts you have, what your personal experience has been with it. And we know this to be true, that we can get it to be a neutral circumstance because we're all dealing with it differently, right? Meaning some people are scared. Some people give 0 fucks about it. Some people have full anxiety, panic attacks. Some people are very sad. Some people are physically sick. There's so many different ways people are dealing with it, which means they're having different thoughts about the virus. The virus is just a thing. It's doing its thing. And you and I get to decide what thought and feeling we want to have about it. I think that's a really great way of showing you how it's just a neutral circumstance. It's just a thing. Your thoughts create what you're feeling about it. All right? There. Okay, that's it. Moving on from that. Please go listen to the previous episodes where I've talked about it. And just know you're a human having the full range of emotions relating to all of it. All right. But we have work to do. We have got our life to continue managing. And so that's why I want to jump into this next one. And at the beginning, I talked about headstrong and unruly. So what I'm referring to is a quote that Uchtdorf, I hope I'm saying his name right, made at General Conference. So last weekend was General Conference. Some of you maybe watched all of it. Some of you may not have even known it was happening. I was aware of it and I tried watching it like just for a minute, like literally, it wasn't even a minute. And I was like, no, I just don't care. I just don't. But then, there are people in all our ex-Mormon groups that keep tabs on that. So it's interesting because I figure if there's something I want to know, I can just pop into one of those groups and I'll see someone took the cliff notes for me and I can pull out what I want from there. So the one I decided to that didn't ruffle my feathers, I actually laughed out loud at it, was Uchtdorf's quote, and I want to read it to you. And of course, it's not the whole quote, but here we go. Quote, even those who reject him, even those who, like a headstrong, unruly child, become angry with God and his church, pack their bags and storm out the door, proclaiming that they are running away and never coming back. All right. It's a good one, right? Oh my gosh. I just love it so much because I can see so clearly what, the top 15 of the church are doing. And I wrote a social media post, and I'm just going to share it with you here because immediately I felt a sense of pride. I felt proud. I felt proud of my journey, that almost so much so that to see one of the apostles referring to those of us who've left as headstrong and unruly, like, whoa, okay. They're wording it that because, first of all, so many people are leaving the church and they need to keep us in a certain light as they talk about those of us who leave, because our voices collectively are getting louder. So if they can kind of frame us in a certain light that looks negative, then the members can be like, yeah, that's right. Right? So it's just a way of speaking fear. So here's what I said. I said, let there be no question. To all of my post-Mormon, ex-Mormon friends, be as headstrong and unruly as you need to be. If they call you a child, let them. You know the pain and heartache of your faith crisis. You know it was the hardest thing you've ever been through. Stand up straight, shoulders back. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You should be so fucking proud of yourself. Don't listen to the thoughts of men who minimize your experience. The words spoken today during General Conference are from a scared group of men who know that when there's no way to win a logical argument, they go for the discrediting game. They paint a bad picture for the members of what an apostate is like. It's fear. It has always been fear. Be unruly, be headstrong. It is what has gotten you this far. Come sit by me. We can be headstrong and unruly together. Dang, I love you. I really feel that sense of camaraderie. And I take that as a badge of honor, right? Especially someone like me. I'm actually quite an introverted person. I'm kind of quiet. I'm an observer when I'm in places. And that's just my personality. And so to go through what we've been through, to have a faith crisis where you are literally up against your eternal salvation, right? Like that's the mindset, that's the paradigm you came from. And so the fact that you are able to leave your religion and walk away from something that in your mind as a believer was leaving it all behind, which meant separating from your family in the eternities, right? It meant you're a black sheep of the family. I mean, these are all the things that you're thinking of, but you have something in you that meant you had to listen to your own self. You had to build that trust within yourself, even though most of the people in your life wanted to keep you in the boat, right? Remember that quote from years ago? Don't get out of the boat. It's all the same. It's all meant to keep you contained and in full membership of the church because they don't have the argument. Like I went with my questions, like what's going on with this? I don't understand it. And when we're told to just go back and believe harder, pray harder, all of those things, that just doesn't work when you have sincere questions. So this type of verbiage that they're using is for sure to keep people in the boat, to keep them in the church. You know your truth. You know exactly what you've been through when you've gone through your faith crisis. I just want to put this in perspective for you. His words, Uchtdorf's words, and I would say most likely the top 15, those are thoughts. That's it. That's it. Those were his words, his thoughts about you who've left the church. Those words mean nothing about you unless you let it, of course. I took it as a badge of honor. Some people got furious, right? Some people just feel more like the victim. And I'm not even saying one is right or wrong. I'm just saying a bunch of feelings were kind of unearthed, right, in different people. You know that we left or you left because your questions were not answered. You know you left because you felt betrayed and lied to. You have your specific reasons. Maybe you left because of the terrible LGBTQ policies and the flip-flopping all over the place with all of that. Okay, whatever reason you left, you know that reason, and you know this wasn't an easy decision. So it's fascinating to me, talk about being fascinated, to see these men try to control the members by painting us in a bad light. Okay, they think we left, and you know all the reasons. I think I even did a podcast on this. Because we didn't believe enough, right? Or we never really had a testimony of the church. We must not have been faithful. We wanted to sin. We must never have believed. We were offended, and on and on. The church leaders need to keep spinning it and spinning it more often that we, meaning you and me, we are the ones with the problem. Okay, because it will keep the people in the church in longer. Okay, so it's always been fear. That's just fear tactic. It's classic. I guess that's why I laugh now, because that's what they have to say. It's come to this. All right, especially women. Okay, listen up. I'm going to have to do a whole episode just on women and because I'm a woman and that's my perspective. But we have been taught, and not just in the church, but just socially, we've been socialized to not be unruly. That headstrong is bad, right? We've been taught to mind our P's and Q's. We've been taught to be nice. We've been taught to not rock the boat, right? So the quote is intentionally pointed at your feelings. It is spoken to the members to frame us in a certain light, but I for sure think it backfires because a lot of your family knows you're not this terrible person, which, by the way, headstrong and unruly doesn't have to be terrible, right? You know the quote, the most well-behaved women rarely make history. I think it's something like that. I didn't look that one up, but it's true. So I know that if you are still tender and raw, of course it hurts. And I honor that in you. And I actually love that in you because you are fighting a lot of different beliefs about yourself. And one of my favorite things to do with my clients is to help them step into their truth. And if you have been taught, like there's a belief in you that being headstrong and unruly is bad, it's going to hurt a little more. But when you can start looking at it in a different light and actually embrace that, that's where you feel empowered. That's where you feel like you're stepping into your own truth and you're not being controlled by a group of men who really have no idea about you and what you've been through and your reasons. Now, I shouldn't say they have no idea. I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have ideas about all of us, but you know your journey. No one knows it as well as you. But here's the deal. They no longer have any power over you. And as your self-confidence grows in your decision to leave the church, and as you become more confident about speaking freely about your decision to leave, whether it's to your friends and family or just, non-members, never members, you will not feel as agitated by their words. And that just takes time. Okay, you're the only one who can make you feel anything. Your thoughts about it will be what generates the feelings you're feeling from that quote. So I have to tell you something funny. Just today, as I was prepping for this podcast, I get a text from my mom, who I love dearly. She's fully Mormon. And she must have seen, I did a Facebook live. I think it was Monday. And I thought I was doing my Facebook Live to my business page, but it went to my personal page. Now, everyone who knows me knows I'm out of the church. It's no longer a secret, right? It's been long enough. And so I just I realized after I kind of did a rant, it was kind of a funny rant because I'm just totally dismissing Uchtdorf. Like, come on, people. Like, this is just silliness. And that was the attitude that I spoke. And about halfway through, I could see some people joining. Like, when if you've ever done a Facebook Live, you can kind of see, sometimes you can see who's joining and who's watching. And I started to see people who are friends of mine on Facebook, but not really in my ex-Mormon circles. And I thought, this is odd. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I just do this on my my personal Facebook page? Yes, I did. And I just thought, you know what? I'm leaving it. Because first of all, that's what I feel. That's me. I'm not ashamed of my journey, of my anything that I say about the church. I stand by it. And I have a lot of people on my Facebook page who I've met through, just being post-Mormon, who were friends, but maybe don't even know that I have a business page with my coaching and all of that. And so I just thought, I'm just leaving it. Like, this is me. This is my truth. And anyone who doesn't like it can leave. Right? That's how I look at it. So back to my mom. So she must have seen it. She must have seen that because I posted my social media post and then I did that accidental Facebook Live on my personal page. So that was like on Monday. So today I get a text and she goes, "You know what, Amy? I think you should call your coaching program Headstrong and Unruly." And I was like, I love it. I totally love it because that's what I'm all about. So I might be changing it. And I just love it because, especially going back to what I said earlier about us women, and if you have been more timid or afraid to speak your voice, like, gosh, you feel so good when you can finally let it out. Right. So who knows? Headstrong and unruly. That's awesome. But I love my mom because I have to give her so much credit because she from day one has loved me no matter what my decision was. And I know that I'm very fortunate in that way. I know that is not everyone's reality, but she wasn't always a member of the church. She joined when she was 16 and she went inactive for a little while. She's always been very religious though, but I have to give her credit. She's a good mama. I just love that she sent me that recommendation and I might just actually consider, like, I might actually seriously use it. So really, with all of this that I'm saying is you should really be proud of yourself. Come be in the H and U club. I think I'll call it Headstrong and Unruly Club. When you have to make that decision that you've done to leave the church coming from your old paradigm, like I said, that affects your eternal salvation, affects your family for generations, right? Like when I went through and I, back in the day, didn't know I didn't have to go see my bishop to have my name removed. I was such a rules girl that I followed the rules that my bishop told me. And I went in to, have an interview with him about me leaving. He really put the verbiage around, do you understand what you're doing? Like he even called me later after we'd had an hour meeting in his office telling me all the reasons why I should stay and how I should read my Book of Mormon and just all the stereotypical things. He called me later that day and goes, "Amy, I really want you to understand that when you're doing this, you're breaking the sealing covenants with your husband, the sealings to your children, like all of that." And I just remember getting so mad, first of all, because that is using fear of the unknown afterlife, right? But second of all, what I had to stick to was, well, I don't believe in any of that anymore. And so that was what my guiding force was. I knew I still loved my family. That wasn't at stake here. I just knew that I did not believe in the dogma and the theology of Mormonism anymore. And so that didn't mean anything to me. But I could for sure see the tactics used, right? Especially looking back as I've gotten farther away from it. So I know that it might be hard to see it as a compliment, what Uchtdorf said, but let your brain go there for even a second. Like if you found yourself getting really mad, what happens if you shift the thought to, I actually like that? How does that make you feel? Practice thinking that. If that's too far of a stretch for you right now, that's okay. But just know that that thought's available to you just as much as the anger that they would possibly say anything like that. All right. You get to decide. What I want to bring up right here is as you're, going through whatever stage of your faith crisis you're in, you're growing. And growth is always uncomfortable, right? So insert story of a butterfly transforming here. Not going to go through that, but you've heard that many times. You're like a butterfly transforming, right? Or a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. Okay, that's not an easy process. And what you're going through is also not an easy process, but you're growing. So growth is always uncomfortable. That's what makes it difficult. If it was easy to have a faith crisis, it wouldn't be called a faith crisis. You would just be done. Now, what I want to say is like what I said at the beginning of this when I was talking about the circumstance of a faith crisis. We know that leaving the church, choosing to not believe anymore, obviously it's a choice, but it's also a neutral circumstance. And maybe you've never tried to just make faith crisis be neutral because it's weighted with crisis, which doesn't feel neutral. So we could break it down to something like, well, leaving Mormonism. Putting that in the C line, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to have to go back and listen to my other episodes that are full of coaching tools for you. But since we're always trying to get our problem to neutral, because we don't make it mean anything till we put a loaded thought about the circumstance. And we know that leaving Mormonism is neutral because some people literally go, I'm done. And they don't like have this big, huge existential crisis around it, right? Like me. And probably you, if you're listening to my podcast, like where you went through hell. That's what I for sure did. So we know that leaving Mormonism is a neutral circumstance because for some people, it's just no big deal. They just stop going, they stop believing, they've kind of turned that off, and that's fine. But when we know that some people experience it in an easygoing way, which is opposite of probably you and me, I'm just trying to show you that when we can get any circumstance to neutral, we can see that it's possible for you to eventually get to even just the word Mormon where you're not triggered by things. And that's the whole goal, right? We're trying to get to a place where we can learn to live with our Mormon family and friends and not be triggered by every single thing they say. Like, obviously, we chose to leave. So we don't have to keep watching. We don't have to keep listening. I think we all keep our ear on it, especially if we have members in our family, just because, like I've said before, I have a son who's fully member, just got home from his mission a little under a year ago, so of course I'm going to be paying attention. As you work through all of your thoughts and feelings around your faith crisis and what this means about you, what it means about your family, your relationship to friends and family, right? You get to start categorizing it however you want to. All right. Those were my thoughts about Uchtdorf and his quote. I think I said in my Facebook Live that I did, bring it on. Keep talking like that. I love it. The more they do that, the friends and family members that we have that know us and know we're good people and we're just trying to figure things out, I think that gets in the back of their head. And this is my hope. My hope is my son watching that. I'm hoping, and I haven't talked to him about it, but sometimes I just hope he thinks, that's weird. My mom's kind of cool and I love her. Just some thoughts for you to think about. Continue with your headstrongness. Continue with your unruliness. Do what you got to do to get through this, okay? You are getting stronger. You are growing, and that's why it feels uncomfortable. All right, I think I've kind of yammered on enough today. I am going to save love bombs and church invites for next week. I'll leave this one with a teaser. How about that? And if you have anything you want to say, maybe email me. Email me at amyloganlife@gmail.com. And if you have a story or any thoughts about church, like love bombs, but what I mean by love bombs is, when you get a heart attack on your door, an invite to a church activity, or an invitation to the worldwide fast, right? That's coming up this weekend. That probably generates a lot of thoughts and feelings for you as well. So I want to do some coaching around that next week. But for today, be safe out there, you guys, and come work with me. Come be part of my Headstrong and Unruly Ex-Mormon coaching program. I would love to sit with you. And yes, people are still coaching around, life is not on hold right now. Back to the quarantine life. If you feel like you're frozen and you need some help around that, we don't need to put our lives on hold. Yes, we may be quarantined into our homes and apartments or wherever you're living, but we still have the same thoughts and feelings about the people in our life, about our faith crisis, about our kids, about our parents, about money. about health, weight, all of that kind of stuff. It's still all the stuff that I talk with my clients every day about. So I would love for you to work with me in that way. Just know that you are always welcome. And you can email me at amyloganlife@gmail.com and we can continue that discussion. Okay, that's it for today. You guys have a great day and work on managing that mind of yours. You're worth it.